I think that there's like love that comes from this plant. I really do. And I just think the world would be a better place if it was legal. That's my passion with that.
No,
I love it.
Yeah. What about you?
So, I mean, I agree a lot with what Matt's saying. I think from my viewpoint, I think that legalizing cannabis in this movement will solve a lot of problems that we currently face today that we don't even know that could be solved. Like,
Kevin Carrillo, what's happening, my man?
Matt, Alex, what is going on? Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, we appreciate your time. You may or may not know, but this is technically called the Real Estate Podcast. But we're we're entrepreneurial, and we love the cannabis business and business in general. And it's just fascinating space, as I know that you know this. And we just love to dive in, man. And we would like to kind of just talk about anything, but really talk a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are today, some of your goals, and see where it goes, talk cannabis, and just get the message out about the plant and your background and business advice. So really appreciate you coming on. And if it's okay with you, man, would love to kind of run through where you came from. You know, it's easy going, like as long as you want. There's no rush, like, you know, where you grew up, what you got into, and where you're at today.
Okay. Yeah. Well, again, I appreciate you guys having me on to share my story. And again, congratulations with all the great work you've been doing with the Real Estate Podcast. So
thank you.
Yeah. So my background, as I mentioned before we started recording, I grew up in a small town just outside of Albuquerque called Belen, New Mexico. And it was really, and it still is, a kind of a wrestling town is really the sport of choice. There's the football team's done well also, but there's a lot of legacy with the sport of wrestling there. And also with my family. My dad was a 2-time state champion. My uncles were state champions. And so I kind of was brought up in that whole culture. Like I started wrestling since I was 5 years old. Did really well in high school along with my cousins. I won a couple of state championships myself from New Mexico. So I was recruited to wrestle in college at Bucknell University, Division I.
That's awesome. Real quick, I don't know if you have any pictures of yourself as a wrestler handy. It'd be cool to see something. Do you have anything close by? No worries if not.
I could probably dig some up. Yeah, it might take me a second, but I mean, if you want me to, I can.
Yeah, let's. If you think you can get one, that'd be cool to see, man.
Okay, let's see.
I respect that wrestling profession, and like I grew up, you know, with a brother, and we were always wrestling, but doing it on a technical side, you know, I don't know much about the sport or how it works, but fascinating.
It is fascinating. It's I'll find it here in a minute. It's asking me for a code, but it's what's awesome about the sport is just the mental toughness that you learn throughout the whole process, right? Like there's a sense of weight management if you're having to cut weight, so you have to be disciplined. You have to sharpen your skills because people like, you know, are doing the same thing. So it's really just what you put in is what you get out. And that translated for me in business and in entrepreneurship. I mean, that's kind of a skill set that I didn't have to kind of relearn or start from scratch because it was already inherent. So that's why I really appreciate what the sport offered, you know, when we fast forward. And of course, we'll get into that. But let me pull up some of these. This is kind of embarrassing. I might have blonde hair, so we bleached our hair for state back in the day, so no judgment. All right,
no judgment.
We're not gonna judge someone who could kick our asses.
Let me see. Do I need to share my screen or
is there an easy way to do that?
Yeah,
if you can,
you probably do.
Oh, it says that you gotta allow me to share.
Let's see here. Appreciate you guys. Listeners are going to like to see this, I'm sure.
Can you do it now?
Yes. All right. So this picture here was
all right
from the state finals my junior year. So I wrestled at 125. So that was one photo. I got the bloody nose there. It was a pretty good battle. And then
looked like you were about to have a takedown on that. Oh shit. Hell yeah.
yep. And this was a district at Belen High School, the school that I graduated from. So we held district that year. And one thing that was really cool is that the school that I went to, Belen, we won state 4 times in a row. And so I'm proud to say that I'm the only athlete from Belen that's been part of a 4-time state championship team, because I wrestled freshman year to senior year on the team. So it was just great. I mean, like I said, I had a lot of great team members around me. We pushed each other. There's the blonde hair, like I mentioned. So
is this you're talking about in College Station or?
No, Belen, New Mexico, right?
Oh, got it.
Yes, because this was high school. So then college, I wrestled 1 year in college. I like to say that I retired from the sport, not quit. But I really had to have a heart-to-heart with myself at that time, because I just wanted more. I was kind of tired of, like I mentioned, the weight management and the focus and whatnot. I was going to a really elite school on a scholarship when they just reinstated the program. So I had a heart-to-heart with myself, and I said, look, this is just a new chapter of my life. I wanna pursue, academics to lead me into a good career path, at the time, because I was looking at just starting my career. So I went into the head coach's office and told him that, I decided to leave the sport and leave the team. And, he was understanding. We talked through it a little bit. There was some back and forth, but eventually I made my decision. Fortunately, I was able to keep my scholarship, because, as I mentioned, the program was reinstated due to, what is it called? Title IX, where they removed college sports to replace it with women's sports. So a millionaire brought the program back and put like 4.1 million into the program. So I was able to keep my scholarship, which was a blessing. And that day I went to a head shop and literally was like, all right, like I had dabbled a little in high school here and there on the off season, but I just made that decision that this is going to be part of my lifestyle, and it's something that just helped me day to day in terms of, alleviating anxiety and being like less edgy. And so, yeah, that's kind of was my mark of when I decided to, at least incorporate cannabis in my life.
That's cool. I was listening to Seth Rogen, and they were like, he was on a interview, and they were like, yeah, you pretty much smoke every day. He's like, yeah, I supplement every day with that as medicine. And right. I thought that was cool. And I know that there's a lot of people that are in the jiu-jitsu arena that smoke cannabis.
Yeah.
I was curious. I was going to ask you if that was the same for wrestling.
It's I haven't heard it in wrestling. I mean, this was years ago that I wrestled, almost 10, 11 years ago. So maybe it's changed. I don't know. But I have heard that about jiu-jitsu, because you're so calm, right? Like when you smoke THC, it really makes you kind of become more self-aware, more thoughtful in what you're doing, whether it be your verbal actions or the way in which you're moving. So jiu-jitsu, it's just kind of a natural fit. That whole sport is about getting yourself in the right position to get the submission, get the chokehold. So, yeah, I've heard that. I think Joe Rogan's even talked about that on his podcast.
Yeah. That's where
yeah. Exactly.
So you got turned on to cannabis at that point, and love to hear about like the journey. Like, was that you said that's the beginning of it, and then we'd love to hear kind of what that's looked like over the years.
Yeah. So similar to Seth Rogen, I mean, since then it's been like an everyday, every other day thing where it's just been a supplement. It's been like my way of medicating. And so that's kind of been the start of it. I was really big on the consumption side of it. The advocacy part and the business part really kicked in within the last 2 years. So in March of 2020 is when I had a full-time job, and I was actually laid off to my full-time job. And I have seen for a while, because I've been invested in cannabis stocks for a while, first in Canadian LPs, but then I quickly learned that there's a lot of opportunity within the multi-state operator side of the house, that this was an industry that's going to grow, and I wanted to be part of it somehow. So in January of 2020, I went with a friend who's already in the industry to the Texas hemp convention in Dallas. And so that was my first kind of look at this industry and walking around and seeing all these exhibitors and whatnot. And I just was thinking like, man, based off my skill set was really high on the entrepreneurship kind of business development side, but also marketing side. I thought, where do I play into this? You know, because I want to be part of it. And so fast forward, as I mentioned, March 2020, the pandemic hit. Unfortunately, I was laid off. But at that point, like, I didn't take any time to kind of sit down and sulk or feel sorry for myself. I thought, I took a 13-mile bike ride that day. And I thought, okay, how are you going to do this? How are you going to get into this industry? And so I thought the perfect first step based off of my skill set was to launch a podcast. You know, I had always wanted to do it. I'm passionate about cannabis. I wanted to be in the industry. So I thought, what better way to educate myself while educating others and building relationships within the industry by launching the podcast. So I started there, and that's where the education really kicked in, because like I said before, I was just consuming and I didn't really know about the advocacy part of it, really how deep the racial injustice goes when it comes to prohibition in the plant. And so I just started learning and started educating myself and having conversations. And, you know, it's brought me to where I am now, where I've shifted my agency that I had prior, my digital marketing agency, to be more focused on cannabis. So, you know, I offer digital marketing solutions to help with building e-commerce websites or social media marketing if they need it, content creation. So there's all these different things that have come into play based off of my experience in entrepreneurship and my passion for cannabis.
I love it, man. That's cool. It's nothing like working in a field that you love and that you're passionate about and believe in. And what's so intriguing to me as a business person is it's so obvious, like what's going to happen. But how it's going to play out and what that's going to look like is unknown a little bit. So it's like there's no question that this is happening. It's more about like when, you know, in my opinion, and sometime in the next 4 or 5 years, but it's like, is it this year, next year? Maybe it could be 10 years. Who knows? Right. But we live in such a cool time that I feel like it seems to me like we are going to see this play out, where like people in the 70s that were passionate about this maybe thought they were, but they didn't know. And like, we pretty much know this is going to play out. There's no way to go the other direction.
Right. I totally agree. Yeah. I mean, to your point, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it's just interesting to see, like, no one can predict what year, but it's definitely going to happen within our lifetime. I would bet within the next 10 years for sure. But like, there's just so many different things that are happening all at once. It's like, it's just crazy to see, because you have really the states leading the effort, right? Because more and more states are becoming adult use or even expanding or implementing a medical program. So they're more open to this plant than we've seen in the past, right? And I think that the state level is what's going to drive the end of federal prohibition. You know what I'm saying? Because right now, I think it's going to be difficult, at least in the next 2 years, to get something signed. From what I've seen with the current Biden administration, he doesn't seem as favorable as most people thought he would be when it comes to cannabis. I mean, he fired 5 of his White House staffers randomly, right? Because they just admitted to smoking, not even been tested. You're seeing some movement in the Senate level with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. He's talking about introducing a comprehensive bill. So we'll see how that plays out. But there's so many components of that legislation, because there's the racial injustice component, as we mentioned. There's regulation. There's all these different factors. So to your point, it's going to take time, but it's definitely inevitable. Yeah.
I got a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
I just thought about this because this is kind of funny. Like, if I was just thinking, man, the way to push this forward would be through Texas. Like, if Texas would get on board. So I was like, man, if you could get to that governor spot and start pushing it, like, that would really push things along. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But
you're good. The needle. Yeah.
This kind of leads into my question. So why are, for both of you personally, what is important about this movement and cannabis, you know, being legal? And, you know, like I know Matt's a big proponent of it, and talks about it every chance he can. I think, if I'm not wrong, you're just fascinated with just kind of, the new industry and it coming out, and like, hear yourself talk about, anxiety and helping you and being a part of your daily routine. But like, why cannabis? Why are y'all passionate about cannabis?
If I could go first, Kevin.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah. I mean, like the biggest thing for me, like the business part is cool, but it really starts with like, I think that a lot of people have been lied to for a long time about what this is. And I really, and Kevin, you're probably the same way. Like, I believe that this plant can change people's lives. And so, like, one, like you realize you've been lied to, like, what else does your mind open to? Like, what else is out there? Cannabis, like, to me, it opened my mind. It helps me relax. There's thousands, millions of people that this can benefit, and they're being held back from this. And it's a plant. Like, it's so obvious that this should be legal. And I'd love to dive into the history because I know there's a huge racial component to it. But like, I had a guy in South Austin that was literally dying of cancer, and I was taking him cannabis, once a month, and he would say, "Thank you so much. Like, this is the only thing that helps me." Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there like, I'm a freaking criminal because I'm taking this guy something to help him with his life. Like, it's just, with no other word, it's fucked up.
So it's the for you, it's more about the prohibition portion and being lied to and all the wrong propaganda around it.
But also I believe that a lot of people can benefit from it, and they don't even know that. And like, it's a natural plant that grows here. And I personally, like, I'm like one of the believers that, like, if everyone just smoked a joint, like, the world would be a better place. Like, I almost feel like that. And it's a much better substitute than alcohol in a lot of ways. And then the whole cannabis beverage industry, like, in my opinion, like, completely replace alcohol. That's fascinating. Mm-hmm. I love someone said this before, is like, put 5 guys in a room drinking, they start a fight, 5 guys in a room smoking, they start a band. Like, I think that there's like love that comes from this plant. I really do. And I just think the world would be a better place if it was legal. That's okay. My passion with that.
No, I love it. Yeah.
What about you?
So, I mean, I agree a lot with what Matt's saying. I think from my viewpoint, I think that legalizing cannabis in this movement will solve a lot of problems that we currently face today that we don't even know that could be solved. Like, we don't know what we don't know due to federal prohibition for the last 100 years. And here's what I mean. So to Matt's point on the therapeutic medicinal side, like, we know that opioid addiction is a problem. We know that medicating a lot with all these different drugs and whatnot probably is not the best thing if you could use an alternative that could help you, that's more natural or more holistic, right? So that's the medical therapeutic benefits. Now let's talk about the economic benefits. We're coming out of a major like pandemic, right? Where businesses have been destroyed, like a lot of the economy is down, right? So legalizing this plant from a tax revenue standpoint and from a business standpoint to generate jobs is humongous, right? Because we're looking at $100 billion industry is what they're projecting, that, overall. Outside of economics, you've got the racial injustice. There's a lot of talk that there's systematic racism going on, and there's a lot, right? Which is true, and it is true because of prohibition for cannabis. Because if you look at the history, and we can talk a little bit about it, federal prohibition happened in the late 1930s from I think it was the DEA or the head of the Drug Enforcement Office. He ran basically a whole political campaign, a smear campaign, to target Black and Latino people, saying that this drug made the reefer madness era, made them do bad things, it made them commit crimes because it was a threat to industry, because the lumber industry was about to thrive in that time, cotton. There's a lot of material applications that hemp can do. And Matt, you talked about Texas being a leader. Like, I foresee Texas being the leader when it comes to industrial hemp once that the infrastructure is built in that area. Once we can start processing hemp and making plastics and biofuel and houses, there's like hempcrete, it's insane what you could do with this. So that's the economic side. And then last is the environmental aspect. We're living in climate change, right? there's no other plant in the whole plant ecosystem that takes in more CO2 emissions and enriches the soil like hemp. So like if you're an organic farmer and you wanted to grow organically, there's growers that have said, well, plant hemp first. Just plant hemp and it'll enrich the soil, it'll clean it up, and then you can grow organically. So that's the part. And that's why I'm so passionate about the podcast and getting the education out. Because again, we don't know what we don't know. And if we really were to just take a minute and look at the history and how we've used this plant before the 1930s, it's a no-brainer because it was part of daily life outside of just smoking it for thousands of years.
Yeah, I legitimately believe that cannabis is one of God's gifts.
I do too.
Like I legitimately believe that he's like, here's this plant and it does a lot of things, like thousands of things.
Yeah.
And for some reason, well, actually, you know why, what you mentioned, we have made it illegal and held it back. And it's just BS.
No, I get it. And not to the extent that you guys are currently, but, like I used to be a big, marijuana advocate as well, and would tell everybody the same thing. But I guess the reason I asked that is, and maybe I just don't pay attention to it or don't see it often, but you don't see many people, maybe they do. A lot of people love alcohol or, whatever it may be, but you don't see a lot of people doing this type of stuff and promoting, alcohol for it's going to be the next thing and it's legal. Everybody knows about alcohol. Everybody has access to alcohol. Everybody drinks alcohol for the most part. And so I'm just wondering when it becomes legal and, it's involved in our society in all the ways that you mentioned and prohibition ends, is everybody going to stop caring about cannabis now that it's legal and accessible and everybody knows about it and all the benefits are being explored?
Well, we'll stop like pushing for it because it's there. And then I still also think that there's a lot to be learned. Like I still don't even think we fully understand the plant. Like, yeah, there could be multiple cures that we haven't even been able to dig into because they don't spend money on the research.
And right. To your point, there's over 200 cannabinoids in the plant, they've said, and we only know of like 11 or 15. So cannabinoids are like the compounds, THC, CBD, CBG. So we only are scratching the surface, to your point. Like we don't even know we don't know what we don't know.
I've never, when you say all these reasons, there's like we could just be passionate about one of these reasons, but there's like 50 of them. Like the whole hemp thing is like, it's ridiculous when you learn about how many uses. Like it's like easier to grow, it's cheaper, it's better for the soil, it's stronger, it's freaking fireproof with hempcrete, it's lighter. Like it's ridiculous. Like
what are y'all's thoughts on all drugs being decriminalized? And go ahead.
Well, I want to ask, can I just answer your other question real quick about what if it becomes legal? In my view, I think that the pharmaceutical companies are already doing their research and they're preparing for this day, and they already have the product formulations on their shelves. So I don't think that we're going to stop talking about cannabis. I think that we're really going to start diving into the medical aspect of cannabis more. And like once these pharmaceutical companies step in, it's like, that's where what we talked about earlier, they're going to start isolating these cannabinoids. They're going to start figuring out this helps with this. And like, so we're only going to go deeper down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. And like, for an example, like you probably heard of this, but like people that are going through cancer treatments or in different, sicknesses that maybe they don't get hungry. Well, there is a component of cannabis that gives you the munchies. Mm-hmm. And like, if you could just single that out to get the munchies every time, that could save someone's life.
There's also one that doesn't make you hungry.
Exactly. See, Alex. Yeah,
I do know. I know a lot about
it. He's got a background of like, he was hardcore into drugs and he's totally sober now. So yeah, that's a factor of how he views things, which I have to be cognizant of when I'm like, this could be for everyone. I understand that some people, can't mess with it, or right. It's not going to be good for everybody. But just like anything,
here's my viewpoint on cannabis, and that's why I asked, because I don't wake up every day and think about, man, I just can't wait for the day that cannabis, I used to smoke a lot of weed. I used to sell a lot of weed and loved everything about cannabis. If it was legal now, I'd probably grow it and probably sell it. if I was allowed to. But like, it's just like that bottle of wine right there. I look at it and I don't think about it anymore, and I don't care about it that much.
Right.
And so that's why I was curious, how, what y'all's viewpoint is, because, I think, and I'm fully support too, just because I don't do drugs or drink or smoke cannabis. I know y'all probably don't like hearing cannabis being called a drug, but
No, I don't mind. It's an external substance. Yeah.
Right. I support it I think everybody should do whatever they want to if they can. For me personally, I end up going to pills and heroin, and
Right.
I'm totally fine just being sober. But I don't know. It's just it's interesting watching y'all in your world. Get
all passionate about it.
Yeah,
I literally, like, when I say it's a gift from God, like, I wholeheartedly believe that, and I think there's a magical component to it. And I remember being in 5th grade, and we went through this program called DARE, and they said, if you smoke cannabis, you could die, and like that's not the case, and like.
Nah.
There's a whole thing of like, we've been lied to, man. And like, cannabis opens your mind. It does make you more creative. Like, people can make better art. They can make better music. Like, the world, I believe, will be a better place, a much better place. I really do.
And I think that it's a trend. It's not just cannabis. I think that we've been lied to in a lot of different ways, right? You see crypto starting to pop up, whatever crypto you're in. But there's this sense from the people that, like, we're tired of centralized banking, and we don't want the middleman. We want to know where our money's at. We want to access our money when we want it, and all that argument. Then you have cannabis, where we just talked about how really, if we did it the right way, we could revolutionize and change a lot of the ways in which we do things today, right? And then the third example is I lost the third, but like even solar energy, right? We're just looking at different ways to do different things differently. Oh, the Reddit stocks. We're seeing, the whole financial market being flipped upside down. No one's looking at fundamentals anymore. No one's listening to the analysts on TV because they've found a way to game the system. Like, the system's been gamed on the other side, right? So to your point, Matt, I think that we've been lied to in a lot of different things for a long time now, and people are just starting to wake up and say, well, I think that there's ways we can do things differently and even better than how it's been done.
And part of this, Alex, is like, for people like Kevin and me who are very passionate about this, like, there's the people that are the opposite of that, who are literally like, that is horrible. I would never do it. I can't, like, people want to go drink and hang out, and I can't necessarily go smoke a joint. Like, it's unacceptable socially in most cases. But like, they can drink a beer. To me, cannabis is way better than that. But I'm going to be judged. I'm going to be told I can't do it. All these things, and I don't even think it's necessarily their fault. I think they just have been lied to, and they just believe that. And I think that they will see a different way one day. Like, people that are close to me in my life that are great people are like, that is a horrible drug. Like, the world is good. If they legalize it, blah, 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 blah. And then just on a straight business side, it's already happening, right? Like, people are already getting cannabis. So let's tax it. Let's make it to where they're getting good cannabis. Like, it's, just all around, thousands of reasons.
I will say that I do think it is ridiculous of course the government has the ability to regulate that industry. It's not like it's unregulatable, right? It's very possible if they wanted to. And I do think it's ridiculous that, you get, every single time I've been arrested, 4 times it's been for marijuana, possession of marijuana, all by the Round Rock Police Department. And, and so, I couldn't do a lot of things. And I sat in jail and had to go through the whole court system all because of marijuana. I wasn't the greatest kid. However, marijuana wasn't necessarily what made me a criminal. It was, all the other dumb stuff I was doing. But I do think it is ridiculous that it's illegal. To me, it's like, why is it even, it's like, it should just be legal. Everybody should just do their thing. And I don't know. It's just weird how it's two extremes of like this extreme of like this plant should be legal. It's a gift from God, so on and so forth, or the opposite. I feel like if it's just legal, everybody will just go about their day and find something else to be passionate about.
You're probably right. I mean, from a consumer standpoint, you're probably right, because it'll just be like you're going into a liquor store or whatever, or or if you're going to your doctor and you're getting your medication, it's going to be the same thing, right? And it's probably already like that in states where it's been legal for a while, like Colorado. I'm sure like a native Coloradian is not going to be like, I just got a new bag of weed. Like it's just their everyday lifestyle, at that point. So I agree with you. Yeah.
And like, we can go on, right? Like one thing that really sticks out to me is the fact that there are, to be honest, mostly older white guys in the industry that are making millions and millions of dollars on cannabis. Yeah. Yet there's still a lot of black people, whatever race, Hispanic, that are going to jail. Like, What the hell? These guys are making a living and changing their lives, and these guys are going to jail. And that's
screwed up, man. Yeah, I've had a few guests on my podcast who have been arrested, and Corvain Cooper is one, Evelyn LaChapelle. I got to give them shout outs, but like their story, they were both involved in the same marijuana conspiracy, is what they called the crime. But Corvain was locked up literally after the guy that was involved in the crime told the police while in jail that Corvain was involved and he needed to be in jail also. So they didn't have any court case. They didn't bring him in with a judge or a lawyer. They literally picked him up from his house and put him in jail on that guy's word. And he served I think 10 years. Evelyn served 8, but she was removed from a more maximum facility to one of those white collar institutions, white collar prisons. And she was like, it's such a waste of taxpayer money. I was literally playing, she was playing, what is it? Horseshoes or crochet, just lawn games.
That's called.
What is this? Yeah. What is this you're talking about?
What is it?
These are guests that I've had on my podcast who have been incarcerated.
This conspiracy, because that doesn't sound like a, hey, this guy was smoking weed, go put
it
him
was 40 tons. 40 tons.
40 tons, and they didn't take him to court?
No guns were there, no violence. It was, they found, and I think that I don't know if the marijuana was confiscated because they knew how much there was, but the guy got caught. The guy that was part of the conspiracy, Corvain, got away, but on the guy's word, just by saying he was involved, he needs to be here, they apprehended him, brought him in, and he had no say. That was it. They didn't look at phone records. They didn't look at any evidence, which I thought was insane.
Well,
I don't know what year that was. That's got to have been a couple of years ago now, but maybe things have changed.
You're innocent until proven guilty.
Right. I mean, that's due process, right? I mean, that's how
it is. It's obviously not that way a lot of times. And I think that's probably it's ridiculous that could happen over marijuana, but I think that as a whole, or many other, instances like that, much, probably more minuscule than the 40-ton conspiracy. I don't, personally, obviously, I think y'all would agree, this is due to a much bigger problem than marijuana. It's the the whole system of incarceration.
Yeah, money.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And the thing is, I guess why Kevin and me and other people like this have to get so passionate is because if you're not, nothing's going to change.
No, I think it's great. By the way, I was just curious because I'm sitting here thinking, I don't ever think about it unless I'm looking at my marijuana stocks. That is the only time.
He does own some stock. He likes Curly.
That's the
hey, me too.
That's the only time I think about it. And but I remember, 11 or how, from 11 years old until 21 years old, telling everybody I knew about marijuana, and I thought it was great, and it made me think better, and I was more creative, and when I smoked weed. And so I was just curious, what y'all's mindset was and passion was about it.
I'm glad you brought it up. It's cool to get it out there. A lot, there's probably people that are going to listen to this that this could actually change their mind. Who knows?
That's my goal, and I know that's your goal, Matt. I mean, anybody that I can cross to just shed any education around this, just because it's been missing for due to prohibition, just to bring it back is a win, because even if you don't want to consume it, even if you don't want to have it in your house, you don't want to be near it, at least know the potential of what this plant can do in so many aspects of human life. You know what I mean? If you're going to be closed-minded about that, then I mean, there's really no help in you at that point. I don't know.
Have y'all ever tried to do things sober without marijuana and see if for me, I think obviously marijuana, THC gets you, changes your mind state and can change the way you feel. However, since being sober, I have tried like CBG or CBD, and I think unless, I'm no scientist, so I have no clue what I took when I took it, but I think for me personally, I didn't feel any different, didn't notice any difference at all. And it's like, is this just a mind thing? Is it kind of like a placebo where, is it all in your mind, or does this plant actually provide these benefits, or do we just convince ourselves that, hey, I took this CBG and my anxiety's gone? And I'll tell you one thing, when I used to go through withdrawals from pills and Xanax and opiates, if I just took an Advil, and if I just took a simple Advil, I'm going through withdrawals, I need these pills to not be sick, and the mental withdrawals from Xanax and barbiturates were really, really bad. But if I just took an Advil, the act of taking the Advil instantly made me feel better. Or if the drug dealer answered the phone, it was like I already had the drugs. Mentally, my mind, my body, it automatically felt better without even taking drugs. And so is it the drug, or do we just think that?
There's a couple things in my opinion, like,
go ahead. Yeah.
Back to what I said, like, we haven't been able to fully study and know exactly what to do and how to do it to what I think what's potentially there. And like, who knows where you got your stuff from? That's a huge problem, right? And maybe you were told it did something that it really didn't do and it did something else. So we just like don't even fully understand. Like, when you're getting in the black market, who knows? Like, it could be anything. When it's regulated and studied and formulated, it's a different experience. And then I'm not advocating like go smoke all the time. Like, maybe you just smoke when you get stressed, or maybe you smoke when you're tired. A lot of people have problem sleeping. Maybe they can make cannabinoid pill. Like, I have problem sleeping, and if I could just take a cannabis pill, it'd be great. Mm-hmm. And so like, I think like where you're coming from is not fully understood by what you're getting, who you're getting it from, what it's supposed to do. It's because it's illegal that's not letting you really understand what's there, if that makes sense.
I'm going to piggyback off Matt. Yeah. So like, the big problem right now with all the products you mentioned, CBD, CBG, the hemp products, is that there's no FDA regulation of these products. So while it's legal to grow hemp and produce hemp products, the FDA is not regulating it from a consumer perspective because it's federally illegal. The plant cannabis is. So because of that, there have been so many bad actors that have entered the space where what you're buying, to Matt's point, probably didn't even have CBD in it, or it probably had very low quality, or it may have even had harmful chemicals and stuff that's not good for you. That is a major, major problem right now. And to your point, Alex, it's detracting a lot of consumers, because people like me and Matt are saying, this is an amazing plant, you got to try CBD. I rub it on my back every night before bed, or I'll take a gummy, because I'm buying products that I know are high quality, that have their COAs. I know what potency levels, I know everything in it. But if you're buying online on Amazon or a gas station or even a CBD store, for the most part, a lot of those are just low quality products. So it could be the placebo effect in that way, because of the just amount of snake oil that's out there. And it goes back to prohibition. It's another unintended consequence, because it's federally illegal, that all these people from the black market, or most of them, have entered in, can let me give you an example. I had one guy on named Josh Schweider, and he is the founder of it's an infinite chemical lab analysis. So they're one of the top leading testing labs for hemp products in the country. And CBS News did a special on them because in 2019, they sourced every or almost every product from Amazon that was CBD to test its efficacy. And 95% came back with little to no CBD at all in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't buy it from Amazon.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you all this real quick. So I used to sell some stuff on Amazon, and I used to sell the batteries for you to screw in your cartridges for y'all to smoke your CBD oil and THC oil. But I would look up, products to sell, and dude, those CBD this is like 2 years ago. And all my friends were like, yeah, these CBD gummies. And it was the biggest thing. Everybody wanted to talk about it. Everybody wanted to get the CBD gummies. And I would look up on Amazon, like what was selling. And there's this one product. Do you know what Alibaba is?
Yeah.
So there's this one product from some supplier in China from Alibaba. And it was, a case of CBD gummies. Well, it was hemp gummies, right? Because you can't sell CBD on Amazon, I don't think. But it's hemp gummies, and basically it's just a bunch of vitamins and stuff. But like the top ones of the gummies that were selling on Amazon was this same supplier, but just rebranded with these different companies, dude. And they were making a killing. Yeah. You would get them, for like $3 from Alibaba for the whole bottle, and you'd sell them for $38 on Amazon. And they're raking in like $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 a month off these hemp gummies that obviously have no CBD or anything in them.
Right.
So it's crazy.
That's exactly the story that he said of what people were doing on Amazon, how they're just rebranding and it's marketing up at like a 500,000% or whatever, insane, man. Yeah. It's not cool.
and the beautiful thing, Kevin, is we are technically the outcasts and the people that, we're wrong, but one day we will be validated. We will be right about this.
Yeah, I mean,
glorious.
It's gonna be glorious. That's all noise, man. I'm like, because like they'll come, like they'll come eventually. There's and it's not even talking down on people that don't know, because there's so much out there, right? Like the internet and what you consume and what you follow, to where like we're passionate about it. Like Alex said, like we breathe and live this stuff every single day, but they'll come around, and it's only becoming more mainstream. Did you guys hear about Amazon?
Yeah, not drug testing their employees.
Not only that, but they're also going to back federal legalization.
Oh, that's right. They're going to get behind lobbying. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's going to be a domino effect. You got the leading company in the world, right? Like, of course, because they're going to be delivering. There's going to be delivery at some point of these products. Mm-hmm. They're not dumb. So
yeah, it's like all these reasons combined. Like, how could you not get passionate? There's guys sitting in jail for a plant that grows out of the ground. It's just,
I get it. I was one of them.
Yeah. Hey, did that inhibit you getting a job at all when you were like arrested?
No,
getting your license was
no. You just gotta it's like y'all said. I'm a criminal for forever now. Anytime I was not the greatest, it wasn't because of marijuana. I was not like a upstanding citizen for our city. However, no, not really.
But okay. It did. If cannabis was the reason that you got put in jail, because that allowed them to take you in, and then you got
it was
on your record, and that record prevented you from getting a job. Remember when you get a real estate license, it took you like 5 times as long to get the license?
Only because I was lazy. It wasn't because of marijuana. It was just because you have to get all these court documents, every single piece of paper for track. But I found that, prior to all this, when I would have a job, first Firehouse Subs, and it was the country club, and then it was another one. But I would just tell them, like, I didn't care at this point. If you didn't like me if you don't want to hire me because of marijuana on my record, or because I'm sober and because I, just got out of treatment, I would go to the next employer. But, I was always upfront, and I said, hey, this is why I was, this is why there's a lapse within my, blah, blah, blah. this is on my record. Here's where I'm at now. Here's what I'm doing. And I always got a job.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. I don't know you personally or anything, but it seems like you've turned it around, man. And like, you're doing better now. So a lot of people don't bounce back like that. So yeah,
thank you.
Kudos.
It's a great story, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll send you a video if you want to check it out about his background. Yeah,
please do. Yeah.
Well, what is this movement called? The marijuana movement? Do y'all have a name?
Movement called
Freedom Movement, man.
The Freedom Movement?
Freedom Movement. Yeah,
God's
I like
gift.
that. Yeah,
God's
the
gift.
Just we believe in personal freedom.
What are next steps here for the movement?
Safe banking, I think, is a big one, right?
Yeah.
Like the ability for companies to be banked. And in my opinion, if that passes, the floodgates are open.
Yep.
And like a couple of years after that, fully legal is just my opinion. But a big one is New York. Like from my understanding, they did legalize, but it's not actually in effect yet.
Right.
And once that comes into effect, shoot, man, all the surrounding states are going to be forced to, and it's a domino effect, and it's just going to keep moving forward.
Yep. I agree. I couldn't agree more. Hopefully we see some of these, like we were talking about earlier, these non-violent cannabis related offenses, like those get expunged, and people get their records cleared from all this. So hopefully we see some racial injustice being addressed, and then also the social equity component. So like getting people jobs who have been locked up for a long time. But also, within the stock market too, like it's just an interesting dynamic because like, as you guys know, we can trade Canadian licensed operators within the NASDAQ exchange, but we can't buy any stock from the top performing US multi-state operators within the NASDAQ because they're all listed in the Canadian exchanges due to federal prohibition, right? Like due to the Schedule 1 listing. So I think to your point, Matt, once safe banking takes, and then we start to see all this kind of other legislation play out, the uplisting, once people start to know that they can buy stock for American cannabis companies on the NASDAQ, that's where it's going to be another floodgate opportunity. And just, it's going to be like the meme stocks right now that are kind of the hype. I think that people are going to start to target those because it's a matter of if, not a matter of when, like we've been talking about,
Cannabis stocks only go up, huh?
Stonks, that's right. Yeah, to the moon, or to Jupiter, we should say.
I like that one. Cool, man. Is there anything that you want to talk about or you want to point listeners to before we get out of here?
Well, first, I just want to say thank you guys again for just allowing me to come on and just talk about what I'm passionate about and hearing your thoughts and great questions for the topic as well. So thanks for that. And then, yeah, if anybody's really interested in learning more about the cannabis industry or like what's happening day to day in terms of trends or what have you, you can check out my podcast. It's called Cannabinoid Connect, and it's on every streaming platform and on social media. And if you're in the business and you're looking for help, on the digital side, my business is Cannabinoid Nation, and you can visit the website cannabinoidnation.com. So
awesome. Love it, man. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Love to stay in touch and see how this plays out. So it was great talking, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Man. Yes. Thank you guys.
Peace.